A very good evening to all of you, and thank you for coming. My name is Wei Han, matric number 049546, and I'm the moderator for tonight's interview. But first, before we start, have you ever wondered what the job scope of a PR practitioner or professional is? How it feels like to be one? And most of all, what kind of challenges they had to face? Tonight, we are very honored to invite a local certified PR professional to talk about this topic. Starting out as a graduate of Public Relations and Mass Communication/Media Studies at Curtin University, Malaysia, he became an intern in Public Relations at Go Communications for 2 months. After that, he worked there as a brand executive for a year. Now, he was being promoted as the Senior Brand Executive of Go Communications since the beginning of 2020. Let us welcome the PR professional himself, Michael Paul.
Thank you. How did you know all that stuff about me? That's amazing. But yes, thank you very much.
Well, we did some research online before we get to interview you.
I'm a bit scared that you knew so much.
Thank you for being here, Michael. It's a true honor to meet you. So, without further ado, let us begin the interview. So now, I will pass the floor to the first interviewer, Aanisah.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, very good. It's very clear.
Hello, Michael. I'm Aanisah.
Hello.
So I want to ask, what is a typical week for you as a public relation practitioner? Your timetable is flexible. How is your last week schedule?
Okay, well, good question. Typical week, right? And this will really depend on the kinds of clients that you service for an agency, right? So a lot of my clients are business, property. I do have one sort of F&B client, if you're familiar with Nobu Kuala Lumpur, the Japanese Peruvian restaurant. And so it really depends, right? Because I have certain colleagues where they'll have activities every weekend, you know. For instance, we used to have Starbucks and they had this coffee chat session. So they'd engage like 4 or 5 media small groups. They bring them to their reserve stores near, Wolo, KL, and Bukit Bintang. And then they'll have a bit of a session, it's an educational thing. And so, every weekend it's an activity. Whereas for my clients, it's more like a press release every month or two, an event every month or two. So it's kind of spaced out. So my week really consists of one, media monitoring, which is your bread and butter for PR, right? Looking at competitors, seeing what they are doing, looking at press mentions. If the media is reporting on your own client, you definitely want to be updating your client about that. Then a lot of it is just, it's just preparation. It's just preparing for the next communications activities, so whether it's an event, if it's an announcement, if it's a partnership, an MOU, it's just a lot of preparation. And it's great that you guys are doing this one because communication is key, obviously, in public relations. And I hope your writing skills are good because you'll really, really need it if you choose to venture into PR because there's so much written material that goes. But yeah, that's pretty much my week. It's just meetings and preparation and stuff like that. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, it seems like public relation practitioner is an interesting job. So can I ask another question?
Please go
Can
ahead.
you tell us about your previous project or your previous project or now the project that you work on that you are especially proud of it?
Oh, okay. I'll give you one. This is quite interesting, actually. So in 2019, and I was still very fresh, right? I was still learning. We had this one client called FWD Takaful. I'm not sure if you're familiar. It's Takaful is Islamic insurance. Yeah, I'm sure you know, right? And they had just launched in Malaysia, and so they were trying to basically roll out their new Takaful certificate. It's basically like a protection plan, right? And their claim was that like usually with insurance, right? The policies are very complicated. It's very complex. It's pages long. It's just horrible to read. And so their whole USP was that our plan is so simple to understand. It's so simple. It's going to be so different from all the other competitors in the market. So what we did to communicate how simple it was, we had a media event at their office. We invited the Star, the Edge, News Straits Times, and the host of the event was a 9-year-old. And the 9-year-old guy basically explained the entire policy to the media, and they loved it. It went in all the papers. It went viral online. It was actually pretty cool. But the idea was that you had the message of simplicity, how easy it was to understand, and we just kind of took that to another level by bringing a 9-year-old in. So that's one that I was very, very happy to be, part of.
Hmm. Okay, and that's all for right now. I pass to the next presenter to ask questions.
Okay, thank you, Aanisah. Thank you very much.
I'll be asking you a question.
Ms. Fatin, hi.
What do you, yeah, that's me. Question is, in the PR industry,
I'm sorry, I only heard in the PR industry. What was before that?
what do you do to keep current?
Okay.
To keep up to date to the current trend and all.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's a very, very good question. And let me tell you, Fatin, I know a lot of people, not at Go Communications, we're all wonderful, but at other agencies, that don't really do that, right? And it takes a lot of research, but you have to be smart with how you research, right? You have to be a bit logical. It's not just, you know, plain and simple looking at, and again, it depends on the clients you service, kind of like my previous point. So for instance, right, like I have a client called Tritera, and they're a property developer that's developing these like office towers in Mont Chiara behind Publica. And so let's say now, how do I keep up the trends, right? I have to look at what other property developers are doing, but you have to be a bit strategic with how you look at it, right? Because Tritera, I'm sure none of you have heard of it, right? Because it's very small, it's very new. They're not like, SP Satya or Masing or one of those big boys. And so I have to look at developers that are on the sort of same, wavelength as Tritera, smaller niche developments that don't do residential, they focus on commercial properties. Then I have to sort of, dissect what it is they do, what's good about it, what's bad about it. Can we learn anything from it? Can we infuse some of their strategies into what we're planning for 2021? And so it's really a lot of research. But I'll tell you this, and this is a very, very useful tip, right? Don't confine or constrict yourself to just Malaysia. Don't be afraid to do some research on what's happening in the Philippines or what's happening in the US or what's happening in the UK. And honestly, a lot of times, right, there are these companies that are very, very smart, and they'll be the first to introduce something in Malaysia. So they're not the first globally to do it, but they're the first to copy someone and bring it here. And there's a lot of value in that. So I think looking at other markets is actually a really, really, really important tip. Yeah. So, but research is definitely how you keep up the trends. Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of research and look at the other outside of Malaysia.
Tons, my friend, tons and tons. Yes.
Okay, so the next question is in your career.
Oh, Fatin. Don't get me started on this. Listen, I'm a bit of a stickler for details. I'm very, very particular about writing, right? And it is so, so, so important when you're dealing with editors from newspapers who scream at you over commas and full stops, and for good reason, right? Because the standards need to be high. In whatever you do, you should aim to be the best. You should aim to deliver the best quality of whatever it is you're doing. And writing in a communications business, Fatin, let me tell you, it is so, so important. And not even just in, like, let's say, writing press releases or articles, but just in terms of communicating with other third parties or stakeholders or whoever you need to, right? Because in PR, let's say, like, it's not just around media, right? Sometimes you want to do brand partnerships, like, sometimes, Adidas will work with Pestle and Mortar to do like fashion stuff, and even then there's communication with other brands. It's not just media. Maybe you're communicating with an influencer, a KOL that you want to sort of engage for a certain campaign, and being able to communicate and comprehend what it is they're saying is very, very important, because a lot of times what happens is there's miscommunication that leads to conflict, and then it just sours the entire thing. So communication is really, really, really important. Yeah, and writing especially. So don't think about it just as far as like press materials. Think about it as communication as a whole. Writing, very, very important, Fatin. Very, very important.
Okay, so I think writing is very important in public relations because you really need
There
to
you
get the
go. I'm glad.
message out. Okay, so thank you, Michael.
Oh, no
And
problem at all.
we'll ask the next question. Thank you.
Looking forward to it. All right.
Michael, good evening.
Hi, Zulaikha. How are you?
Oh, great. So I have a question. What three tips would you offer to someone who just start out PR?
Oh, wow. 3 tips. Okay. Let's see. Someone who just started out, right? Okay. What would I tell myself 2 years ago? Um, I think number one, I can do three, right? Number one is um, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Obviously, don't try to make mistakes, but don't be afraid to screw up, and be accountable, right? So even if you make a mistake, and especially if you just started, they'll usually be quite lenient about it. But when you make a mistake, learn from it. Really do your best to make sure it never happens again, and hold yourself accountable. I think one thing that I see that I don't really like, not just in PR, this is just like in the whole working landscape, is a lot of people like to play this whole "it's not my fault" game, and they start pointing the finger, and it just becomes very toxic. I think being accountable and being the strength to be like, listen, hi, that was my fault. I screwed up. It'll never happen again. I'm going to try whatever I can to make sure that I don't repeat this mistake. That's so powerful. It's having the vulnerability to be like, you know what, I screwed up, but I'm going to do whatever I can, and it creates an element of trust with your colleagues, with your team. They know that, okay, listen, he's trying his best. He might have slipped up here, but he's going to do it better. And I think also it shows that you're responsible and a bit mature, that you can handle that situation that way. So I think don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's part of the process. You will, even till today. I made a mistake today. You know what I mean? So it'll always be there. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think number two. Okay, number two. I think I would say be proactive. Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. In PR, especially in an agency, right? This is a thinking business, and you'll be surprised like how many people don't use their brains. That's a quality. That's something we admire over here. Um, if you're someone that wants to just sort of sit back and take orders and do tasks, you won't get very far in PR. I can tell you that. You have to be proactive. You have to constantly be thinking. You have to take ownership of the clients that you service. Um, so don't be a Boy Scout. Don't just sort of do. Think, what can I do? Think about 2 months ahead, 3 months ahead, 1 year ahead, 12 steps ahead. So don't just think about the now. I think that's really huge. Being proactive. Number three is I think learning when to push back with clients specifically. I know that when you're servicing a client, there is going to be a subservient nature because they're paying you and you're contracted under them. But listen, you're not an information provider. You're not a press release machine. You're a PR consultant. So you have to do your job in consulting them. So, and in a very diplomatic way, right? I think sometimes if you don't agree on something, or they're asking for a little bit too much, or what they want doesn't make sense, you have to very diplomatically be like, listen, I get what you're saying. I see where you're coming from, but it's not going to work because of A, B, and C. And listen, we've done this 1,000 times. Trust us. Doing it this way will be much better. And it's just standing your ground and being a consultant. You don't want to become a yes man, because then what's going to happen is they're going to be doing all the thinking, which is what you're actually paid to do, and you're just going to be executing. And again, executing is part of your job, but you need to be a consultant as well. So I think that would be, is that three or is that two? I did three, right? Three, excellent, wonderful. Sorry, I lost count. Math is not my strong suit. That's why I joined PR.
Oh, amazing tips.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Sorry, what was that?
Those are very amazing
Oh, thank
tips.
you.
Very helpful.
Yes.
So one more question from me. What is your opinion
Alright.
on ethics in PR, and how does it play its roles in PR? The ethics.
Yeah, number of ways. I think there's ethics in messaging, and there's ethics in dealing with the media. And I think, listen, I always talk about standards, right? You must, if you want to excel, if you want to do well in this business, you must have the highest of standards, and ethics is no exception. Just being ethical in your messaging. I think sometimes what people try to do is to make more of a hype, or get more of a buzz, or be a bit more interesting. They might, twist the truth and lie here and there. Maybe they might, forge certain numbers. And it's just, listen, I get why that there's obviously a return in the short term, but I think you must be ethical in the way you practice. It's just so important, because one is you have to have some trust between you and your client. Two is you have to have some trust between you and your colleagues, to know that you're in an environment, you're under an organization that acts ethically, and you don't want to get into any trouble. And the media business is very, very sensitive. So especially if you're doing something that has to do with like politics or like news, it can get real, real, real ugly. So my advice is, ethics are very important, and you definitely abide by it.
All right.
So my next friend will ask more questions.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
My name is Aqilah. You can call me Aki.
Oh my, okay.
Okay, my question is, did your education prepare you for working in PR, and how?
Absolutely not. No, I learned jack shit when I was in Kurdish. Listen, let me just tell you something. Like, the theory and practical are just two totally different things. And as much as I appreciate my university experience, right, because it was a lot about working in teams and being independent. I was in Sarawak, my family's in KL, so I was on my own. It was a wonderful experience for those reasons. As far as PR, I mean, Jesus, I don't even know what I learned that I'm using now. Zilch, nothing. I'm sorry. I know this is not the answer you wanted, Aki, as I can call you now. But it's just it's. I mean, there's certain things. I'll give you this. Let me give you something to work with. As far as like writing press releases, and just the very basic stuff. Sure, I did learn that, but once I entered Go as an intern, even as an intern, I mean, it was just miles apart from what I was learning back then. And I think it's just, I think if any of you actually plan to venture into PR, don't be frightened or like overwhelmed by like how different, like studying PR to doing PR is. Because I think that applies to honestly most businesses, most industries. But yeah, I don't use very much, to be honest. Not at all. I'm
All
sorry. I
right.
know this is a bit depressing. Yeah.
Okay, I got your point. Thank you. So
Okay.
I think my friend is going to ask you questions next.
All right.
Hi, Michael.
Hello, Anaria.
It's me. You can call me Anna.
All
So
right.
I have two questions for you today. So the
Okay.
first one would be, how does technology affect your daily work?
Yes. Very much so. And I think 2020 as a whole has been an eye opener into what technology can do. So even like what we're doing right now, which is like a Google Meets thing, ever since the MCO, this is basically what I've been doing 24 hours a day for the past few months. It's just been virtual meetings and virtual events and virtual this and virtual that. I think my eyes are going bad from staring at the screen so much. But yeah, no, but listen, and I think as much as I'm sure next, the vaccines are coming in. Okay, I mean, everything's sort of going back. The MCO is sort of eased off, and even though we'll go back into sort of full force motion, I think um, how convenient and efficient this is, rather than me driving and finding parking and meeting you at a location. I think it's really going to improve like business efficiency, not just in PR, but like just across the landscape, right? And so I think this year has been great for everyone, really, just to discover what kind of tools are really, really useful. I think video conferencing would be at the top of the list. But I think aside from that, and I don't know if this is related, but I'll say it anyways, I think like data, which I park under technology, is also very important, right? Because in PR, it takes like I told believe it was Fatin, right? Like a lot of research, tons and tons and tons of research. And we have different like tools and like third-party services that we use to get data and information and contact information. So technology plays a very, very significant role, in PR.
Okay, and second one would be, are you involved in any particular organization such as the RM and the PRS?
Right. Yeah. No. No. I saw this. Wayne, you sent over the question. I saw this question, but listen, I checked with our CFO. We're not actually part of any of those organizations. I'm sorry if that hurts your assignment, but we're not. Our agency is not. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
No problem.
I guess I'll pass to the next one.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Hamizah. You can call me Miza.
Hi, Hamizah. Do you have a microphone? Is that a microphone you have in your hand?
Yeah, because my voice is not that loud.
Oh, God, you gotta change that, my friend. You want to be in PR, you have to speak loud and clear, my friend.
That's why. Okay, so my question is, as far as you can remember, when your company is hiring for an entry-level PR position, what makes a candidate more?
Okay. Well, listen, I don't hire people personally. I'm not at that level, not even close. But I do know what they look for in candidates, right? So I'll share that with you. Obviously, first impressions, your CV, it's got to look spectacular. And I think going back to my point about proactivity, it needs to be prevalent that you've participated in things outside of what is required, of what is just required. So if it's clubs, if it's initiatives, if it's a CSR project, whatever it is that can sort of help your CV and in a relevant way. You know what I mean? Like don't put, if you're applying for a job in PR, you put stuff about, joining a kite flying competition. It's like, well, I don't really see why that needs to be there. But just make sure it's relevant in a sense, right? Second thing is you have to be willing to do the hard work. You have to be willing to come in early, go back late, and if you're someone that's fussy about hours and how much, I mean, agency life is not for you. I can tell you that. Maybe in-house PR where you work under a brand. So meaning that, like, for instance, Tritera is one of my clients. So if you were to go and do like marketing or PR under Tritera specifically, totally different experience from agency. Agency life is a 24-hour business, very demanding, very fast-paced. But listen, you have to love what you do, or else it will be tiring, it will be exhausting, and you'll be dragging your feet. So I think what we look for is people that are game and ready to sort of take it on full force, excited about PR, and want to make a difference, and are very ambitious. Yeah. I think the other thing that we look for is communication. How good is your command of the English language? How are your writing skills? And again, we're a communications business, right? So it's really, really, really so important. And it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect right when you go for the interview, but I think it needs to be at a level where it's like, okay, we can work with this, and it's a bit of a journey. Your stint here will be a bit of a journey, and we can work with this, and you'll improve. And listen, we have over 40 people in our agency, right? Not just PR, we have digital, editorial, design, and all kinds of other stuff. And when everyone comes in, they're not at the level that they are now. It's a journey, so you have to improve. But I think that the main point is that you have to show some inkling, some indication, right, that you have the potential to sort of, for them to invest in you and for you to grow. So I think that's kind of what we look for.
I see. So we must develop those kind of personality, right? Those communication skill, and yeah, because PR there's a salesperson at the same time, right?
That's right. That's right.
So one bonus question. So in your opinion, is a communication technician is like entry level of PR position?
Sorry,
Is it
sorry. What was that? Sorry, what was that?
is the one who prepared the pamphlet, brochure, and annual report, so on? Is it the entry level of
Okay, sorry. Communications. I heard technician. Is that correct?
yes, yes.
Okay. I don't know what a communications technician is. If you're talking about entry level, and I think some of the items you cited, right, like annual reports and stuff like that. Yes. I mean, sorry. Are you asking me if that's what they do, or?
Is it the position, the early position? You start as an intern, right? And then you develop. So I
Yes.
think it's not necessary, right?
Oh, I see. Okay, no, I think I understand. What you're sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah. Okay. Listen, different agencies they'll have different like names for their positions. It's not like standard across. It's similar. It's similar. So here at Go, I can only speak for Go, right? I'm sorry, but for Go Communications, this is your trajectory. You may start as an intern, you may not. Then you go into a brand executive, and usually it takes you about 2 years to get to a senior brand executive if you're doing well. After a senior brand executive, you become like what I am right now is an associate brand manager, then a brand manager, senior brand manager, and if you're extremely good at what you do, then you become a brand director, and then you lead your whole team. But I mean, that's for a few people. Yeah, but as far as the items that they do, yes. Listen, I think for a brand executive entry level position, we give them exposure to do any and everything. I think what we limit Hamizah is basically the client liaison. That has to come from more experienced people, because you're dealing face to face with the client. There are standards in place. You have to know your stuff, and so you can't just throw an entry level guy right in there. It'll turn into a mess. But yeah, we give them everything: annual reports, media monitoring. They have to know the basics before they can sort of make that trajectory. I hope that answers your question, Hamizah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I shall pass the floor to the moderator.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Hamizah. So I have one last question before we end this interview. Would you mind if you provide us a photo of yourself? And can you share us your online profile?
Okay. You mean like my LinkedIn or something, or? Yep, I can do that. So you want me to like WhatsApp it to you or something? Excuse me. Oh, I see. Right now. Oh, I like that. You're all about right now. Okay, okay, okay. Let me just send it for you, my friend. It's not very impressive, by the way. I don't like update my LinkedIn. I'm so sorry. I hope it doesn't hurt your marks. Okay. Um. Okay. All right. Here you go. Have a look. Don't judge me. It's right there. Um. If you need an image of me, Jesus Christ. Okay, Wayne, that the image I'm gonna have to send you later because I don't take many photos of myself. I'm so sorry. I'll have to dig up something from like we had a Christmas party. Um, I mean, let's not say party. I know it's not allowed. A Christmas gathering of sorts last week, and so there were some pictures there. I'll try and find one for you and send it to you. If not, if you can rip it off this LinkedIn thing, that'd be great as well. But yeah, is there anything else you need from me, Wayne?
Nothing, Michael. That's all from us. Alright, thank you so much for the information, Michael. So now we come to the end part of our interview. We would like to say thanks again to the PR professional himself, Michael Paul, for the informative and interesting interview. Hopefully, this will be beneficial for everybody, especially for those who wanted to work in the field of PR. Thank you all for your time and have a good night.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Very nice questions. Right, nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Mark.
Michael.
All right, okay.
Gambar.
Oh,
Wait.
picture.
Picture. Oh, okay. Yeah,
We
please.
need a picture, right?
Green screen.
We can screenshot that. I mean,
Oh,
secret screenshot. Can we find?
okay. Who's taking? Aqilah, eh?
Okay, I'm just
Okay.
smiling like sexually, so just let me know when I can stop.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you.
All right, guys. Good luck with your assignment. I hope it goes
Thank
well.
you. Have a good.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. Happy holidays, guys. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Belle.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.